we mentioned suffering, that there's a connection between consciousness and suffering, that suffering is a fundamental part, the capacity to suffer is the fundamental part of being human.
I mean, look at when you're not conscious, you don't suffer. You know, we've had operations where we've been put under anesthetic. We're not conscious and we don't suffer during the operation. If we were conscious, we would. But there's also, I mean, there's a non-physical suffering that is very much tied to consciousness. I can think of things right now that will cause me suffering, like pain that I've caused or pain that other people I care about have felt or so on. So I don't see how, I think that way. I think it's equally true of joy. Joy is also a product of consciousness.
All tied in some beautiful, messy way with memory and so on, that we can re-experience it when we recall the memories. But why is there suffering? You mentioned evil. Why is there evil in the world? You can tell stories about this. Why is there suffering? Why is there evil in the world if there's a God that cares for us?
So let's assume for a minute that everything was a primitive robot. There would be no suffering, but there would also be no growth. And that implies choices. Like one of the things that I've said that I know why it hurts people, and I don't mean it quite the way that, but I will say it nonetheless, is the Holocaust presents the exact same theological question as somebody who gets shot on the streets of a city in Los Angeles, which is, God, why do you allow some people to do bad things to other people? It's on an unimaginable scale, but it's the same question. And the answer has to be, you either allow people to have free will or you don't. You can't say, as God, I'm going to let everybody have free will, but not Nazis. Nazis don't get free will. Because Cambodians, they can kill each other. Rwandans kill each other, but the Nazis don't get to do that. So that's one piece of the puzzle. And what makes it unfathomable is when you're actually faced with suffering, these kinds of explanations are obscene. They just are. You can't, I mean, when somebody is actually suffering, oh, the rabbi said God gave people free will, that's just awful. But there is a second piece to this also, which is that there is natural suffering, like children born with diseases or earthquakes or volcanoes or whatever. And here my argument is that in some ways, suffering has to be random in the world, because when people say, why do bad things happen to good people? Well, if only good things happen to good people, everybody would be good. But it would have no moral content. The only way you can be good and it have moral content is say, I know that I can live a really good life and have really terrible things happen to me nonetheless. So it feels to me like it has to be a randomly. Now that means, by the way, that I've been incredibly lucky. I don't have a good life because I was good. I have a good life because I was lucky. And that implies not that I should feel guilty about it, but that I have a tremendous responsibility as a result to other people who aren't so lucky.
Tremendous responsibility to study the lessons of history, to tell the stories of those who were less lucky, and to draw enough wisdom from them so that we have less cruelty and suffering in the world, or have new kinds that get us to improve even more.
That's right. Exactly. That we suffer better.